Good afternoon, good evening, um, good night, good day to some and others. We want to welcome all of you to SKTV. Welcome each and every one of you. Um, Today is Friday, March 18th, 2022. Um, Today, we are here for another segment of the mental health and wellness um, conversation. And we want to welcome all of you, our listeners, our viewers from around the world. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Today, we having to have one of the most interesting conversations that we'll be having here today. Um, so we wanted to invite someone, invite others, share the show. Um, I will be sharing the show soon once we start the musical break here. But we want to welcome all of you. Let's talk mental health and wellness. To this topic, as you can see on the screen, industry versus inferiority. A lot of good conversation today. Like I would say, a lot of information. So you want to be glued, tuned in, ready to go set. Um, Whether that to take notes, to write notes, and so forth. You definitely want to be part of today's conversation. Do all you can to be part of it. Um, let's invite someone. Let's invite others. Let me make some disclaimer really quick before we get started. I would have loved to recognize one or two people if you write your name or if you write something, then I would recognize you. If not, that's fine. It's optional. But for the sake of this conversation today, we want to make sure that we inform you that this is not a counseling session. We want to put this disclaimer out there. This is not a counseling session. The second part of this disclaimer we want to pull out also is there will be no politics or no political thing going on here. No, 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 no. We're not discussing politics here today. We're sticking strictly with the conversation. We also want to inform you that it would be at your own risk and detriment, or you'll be risking your privacy should you choose to write, say, or communicate anything during this podcast. It will be on you. Your privacy is not guaranteed, so will not be held liable for whatever you say, whether you want to give your own testimony to what we say here today, whether you want to reference something that happened in your life. Just note that it will be your responsibility and so forth. What a disclaimer. Please, you are more than welcome to follow the show, watch the show. No insults. We don't do insults. You can disagree with us. You can disagree with someone, but please, no insults under this live feed or podcast. No insults, please and please. What else? What else I think it's needed? Most importantly, we want you to help us share the show. Let it reach as much people as you can. Even share the show to people that you don't like. But let's get this going for today. And let's get this podcast rolling. I'm getting some messages here, so about the timing and so forth. But yes, so we're going to go quickly to our musical break. Like I said, we have a lot of things to cover, and we'll try to share the show. Please, let's share the show. Let's invite other people. 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 3 p.m. Arizona here today. Well, it's 3:08. It's 6:08. It should be 5:08 in the Midwest or 5:08 in other places p.m. And it should be 11:08 in Liberia as we speak. So some people are still up. It's the weekend, especially in Liberia. Thanks to our viewers and our listeners from Australia, from Asia, from Europe, from the Americas, from Liberia, wherever you are watching and listening to us from. Let's get started here and let's share the show, please. I will play Teddy and Eric Jizo, Find a Friend Like Me. And then we will probably play another music while we're sharing the show because I would like to share as much as I can. Thank you, and help us share the show.
Love.
Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. If you not want betrayal, find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. If you not want betrayal, find a friend like me.
Bombe oh, find a friend like me. Bombe jene oh, find a friend like me. Find a friend like me. Find a friend like me.
Hey, see bestie. Your bestie not sweet like my bestie. Your bestie la bestie. Find a friend like me.
I say, see bestie, bestie wanting to wealthy. Find a friend like me. I hear them say they want me go. I say
Some of them say they want me go.
I say
Some friends you na oh. Some friends you na oh. Some friends you na oh. Friends you na oh. Hey, see bestie. The bestie not sweet like my bestie. The bestie la bestie. Find a friend like me.
I say, see bestie wanting to wealthy. Find a friend like me. They won't step on my blessing, but God get it breaking. They won't call it my blessing, but God get it breaking.
Friendship, see friendship. Can't see Papa T friendship. And I want no back for friendship. Wangolo, Wango for bestie, Wango for daddy,
I hear them say they want me go. I say I hear them say they want me go. I say
Some friends you na oh. Some friends you na oh. Some friends you na oh. Friends you na oh. Hey, see bestie. The bestie not friend by my bestie. The bestie la bestie. Find a friend like me.
I say, see bestie wanting to wealthy. Find a friend like me.
be a local. So moral. You post a new car on Facebook. But that's so la la. You working better. Bluffing your aggie, jealous, say you photo. My advice for you, in my way, I got to confess. Confession. You gotta confess. You must have the impression. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing.
It's never gonna be another man trash, just another man treasure. Another man fool was another man poison. Got your good, according to your measurement. Got your good, according to your measurement. The player ain't garish, and they play you for it. Just because so impression. Impression, fake impression. Impression, yeah. You don't even know my story. Or you want to share my glory, oh yeah. Everywhere you my way, oh way, oh. Every oh you my way, oh way, oh. Every touch you my way, oh way, oh.
Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Enjoyment, got your blessing. Enjoyment, no more stressing. Yeah. The hammer you driving, I think to keke. This a ballin'. The thing that we talking, they must stay right here. Stop spoiling my meaning. I live in my life, oh. See, I live in my life, oh. If you pay you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hold you, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you hate you, you know, hey, oh, hey, oh. If you pay you, hey, oh. You don't even know my story. Enjoyment.
Oh my god, you're cute.
Enjoyment, no more stressing.
Well, we'll leave it there for now. Enjoyment. I think I was able to share to some extent the show. And some of you would help us as well. But let's get into the conversation. Welcome to all of you to today's edition. Today, we are on the fourth topic, as you are already aware. And the subject in discussion, we're talking about human growth and development. The subject in discussion here today is industry versus inferiority. Now, at a later point, we will talk about inferiority. We'll talk about industry, what it really means in terms of humans, their relations, their growth, and their development. But we also wanted to clear out that for those of you who have followed us from day one, it would be good. It's imperative that you follow each series because they build up and the information so that you're not all over, so that the information is not lost. So, and also there has been time change in the US. The East Coast went ahead 3 hours ahead of us. The Midwest, I think they went 2 hours ahead of us and so forth. But then we had to, reduce our time, or let's say backtrack our time to 3:00 p.m. instead of 4:00 p.m. So I just want to make sure I make that clarification. So some of you who might still be confused about the timing and questioning why we are on today and so forth, that is the reason as to why we are on earlier than we are supposed to be. But again, like I said, human growth and development, it all falls under mental health. But let's Let's talk about mental health really quick. You would see some of these very first captions. Some people are fairly new. Some people have been here for a while, so they understand. But let's talk about what mental health is in totality so that some people are not confused. Mental health, according to the World Health Organization, um, includes your emotional state, your psychological state, your social state, your well-being, and it also affects how you think, how you feel, how you act. Also, it helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy decisions. Mental health is also at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. So let me put it this way. Let me put it the simplest way to all of us. Whether you are in Africa, you're in Europe, you're in Asia, you're in Australia, regardless of which continent you're on, the issue of mental health is experienced all over the world through all humans, and all of us have our experiences with it, whether you know about it or not. So the ability for you to make good decisions, to even interact with people from a healthy standpoint, especially mentally, has to do with your mental health. Let me put it that way. It has to do with where you are mentally. So your ability to socialize so that you don't appear weird, so that you don't act out of context, so that you don't do things that are not acceptable, you have to be in the right state of mind to do that. So your mental health is critically important. It's very important for the moving forward of your life and decisions that you make as well, even choices that you make. But let's move a little bit. We talked about last week. I'm just running over some of these. Last week we talked about the importance of mental health, and we talked about the fact that mental health is important both from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, a psychological and emotional, even a religious standpoint. That is how far and how deep mental health goes. We also talk about the importance of creating a balance, because when you are mentally okay, it creates a balance in your life. It creates a balance in your life. It helps determine some of the things that you would do and that you wouldn't do. It also has the ability to predict some things that you would do as well. So, in a nutshell, it helps even with your medical issues, medical problems. Not being mentally okay can have some medical impact on your life. It can have some side effect on your life. So, yes, it's important for us to be mentally okay. Overall, mental health creates a balance in your health and your stability. Last week, we talked about different things that can cause mental health problems, and we're talking about it today also. It could be family history, and last week we spoke about a relatable example as to how some people are predisposed. It's been also researched and discussed that there are some genetic factors. Some people are born naturally like that. On the other hand, some people started to experience mental health issues either because from past experiences such as parents, family, instability, and so forth. So yes, so the issue of mental health is not solely restricted to, you can't just say that one thing can be the cause for mental health issues. There are different factors. We told you last week, and most times when I say this, sometimes people think that we're being personal or so forth. Drugs, alcohol, they have the ability to impact your mental state. You might say now, oh, I'm too young, I'm just enjoying, I'm chilling, I'm having fun, and so forth. and back and forth, but these things have the ability to impact you down the line or at some point or at some stage in your life. Mind you, the issue of mental health, we said earlier, it covers your entire lifespan, your entire existence, as long as you are in existence. So some people would be acting a certain way now. It's based on the choices that they made. Even worse to say so, we've seen our times, most of the young people, even some of the older people, they're adding hard liquors, they're smoking different things, they're taking different drugs, and so forth. It has the ability to impact your mental state. And when we say some of these things, people take them personally and they get upset than sticking with the facts. These are some of the facts that we're faced with. And diverting the attention and taking it personal does not solve the problem. So these are some of the factors, children, experiencing abuse, experiencing trauma, all of these things can have a long ripple effect on our mental health as we move forward. We told you last week, and we've told you from the get-go, that this old gentleman that you see here, Erik Erikson, we told you about Erik Erikson, who came up with this theory of the 8 stages. Some people call it the 8 stages of growth and development. Some people call it the 8 stages of psychosocial development. However you want to term it, about Erik Erikson contributed a lot to us, to humanity. He was a German American. He wrote a lot of different books and so forth. At some point, we'll talk about one of the books he wrote. He talked about identity crisis. These are important things. But today, as you can see on your screen, we are on the 4th stage, which is industrial versus inferiority. And as you can see, we've covered trust versus mistrust. We've covered autonomy versus shame and doubt. We've covered those. And we've also covered initiative versus guilt. Today, we are moving into covering industry versus inferiority. So let's get into today's conversation. What the biggest question is, what should we expect in this stage? Some might say this stage is categorized between ages 6 to 12, 5 to 12, 7 to 13. Either ways, the main focus here is, in this stage, you are anywhere between the age of 5 to 6, 5 to 12, or 6 to 12. But what are we to expect in this stage? Because it's important for you to understand that in this stage, there are some expectations. There are some things that we need to look forward to. What really need to happen? What is expected? At this stage, what should you be seeing your children doing? At this stage, what were you doing? The first thing we have to establish is, at this stage, it's more of a school age. It's more of understanding competency. It's more of competition, social interaction, and building up away from your family or your normal routine. You start to develop different routines, such as going to school a certain time, interacting with other people, and coming back home and doing your homework. Or getting involved with other activities. So at this stage, parents can lose their children, or they can gain them as well. Connections are very important in this stage. Support is very important in this stage. In this stage, your children will rely on you for balance, such as information they get outside and what's inside. So if you cannot provide them with that support, and that balance that is needed at this time, more likely so your children would be going out to find these balances or information that they would need. At this stage, also, children are learning different things because they're interacting with different people out there. So, what does it say? What do we say here? There are different things children are navigating at this stage to determine their success. Children develop confidence in this stage. Confidence is very important. So, remember last week we were telling you cannot be cracking down your children and calling them losers and telling them you look just like your dad, you act just like your dad, you must support them. At this stage, it even gets your support is even more needed in this stage because they would be interacting with other children. They would be learning how to accomplish some things and can I accomplish some things. They will also be adapting. They will also be learning new things from outside, whether that's from school, whether that's from other activities that they're involved with, whether that's sports, and so forth. So they will be exploring the world outside there, but also they will be coming back home to you. So it's important for you to be fully aware of their activities. It's also important for you to be fully engaged and involved with their activities at this stage of their life. So you getting involved, important. In this stage, the expectation is they will be competing. There will also be the development of competency. In this stage, also, the expectation is they could start to learn either how to be a bully or become victims of bullying. Become victims of bullying, your children. So this stage is very critical. In this stage, they'll be focusing on the academics, they'll be focusing on social activities, they'll be focusing on competition. Some of them would be seeking recognition. There's huge peer pressure in this stage. All of that. But even in this stage, there are also developmental factors. A lot of things will change in their body, in their physical, with the physical morphology or however you want to term it, the physical look. Also emotionally, there will be a lot of things going on. And we'll dive into that in a little bit here. For the females, hormones changes. For the girls, some of them will start to develop breast at this stage, at puberty. So you should start paying attention as parent. For the boys also, puberty as well. They'll start growing taller, start having bigger voices, some of them. Let's use the word macho, or they'll start having the man posture or so forth. So a lot of things happening at the same time. A lot of things will be happening at the same time in this stage. So it's important for you to pay attention to your children at this level, in this stage, and at this time. So let's move forward now that we know some of the things that we have to that we are to expect in this stage. So what do we actually mean when we start to use the word industrial? What does that really, really mean? Because for some people, it would be confusing. For some people, when we start to use words like industrial, what does that really, really mean? So, industrial actually, in the context of dealing with human being, it's not an industry, as we say maybe the infrastructure, or we say the business. Industrial in the context of human beings growing and developing would be building self-confidence. Where people are building self-confidence, it will also be where they're identifying the different skills. Your children are identifying the different skills. They're able to interact with other people, but they're also able to independently think. So they have the resources and they have the support system to help them do that. In this stage, they will be computing, they will be discovering other things about themselves from a social standpoint. Some of them will be natural athletes. So all of these different factors are coming to place to bring about this word called industrial or industry. Again, confidence in this stage, what it means, industrial confidence, self-esteem, being able to adapt, being able to adjust, and also taking on different roles and responsibilities because they will be going to different classes. They will be going to different classes. Yes, somebody's asking, what do I mean by puberty? We'll get to that part. But that's a good question that maybe has to be addressed so that we're not confused. In as much that we'll talk about it a little deeper, but puberty simply means, for example, facial hair, underarm hair start growing in private parts and other parts of people's body. This is a stage of your life wherein, and all of us who are grown now, maybe 18 above, we've passed that stage. Some young people, some younger people that are hairy will start experiencing facial hair, and some of them would start experiencing beard. Some might experience mustache as well. You start getting that people saying like, bro, that man who look or whatever now. But puberty in that context, some younger girls would even start seeing the menstrual cycles or so forth. So puberty, it's a word that has a lot of things to do with it. But let's come back to industry because it's important for you to understand industry in this stage. So industry in this stage, you are learning a lot of different things. You are understanding the word. You are developing other skills. You are becoming to adapt. You are doing more than one thing at a time. And it can be stressful too for some children. And we'll get into that because you are taking on more than one responsibility. You are becoming to understand how the word works, such as school. When you go to school, you got your homework or you got project that you got to do, and the teachers will ask questions. They will ask you for participation in class. So, a lot of things start changing. So some days your children will have good days at school. Some days they will not. All of these different things will be happening. You start to, learn different skills. Then your children will also develop into different athletes, or they will bring out these skills that maybe you didn't see or you didn't know about. They start to cope with different things, peer pressure from school. Some of them would gravitate towards, the bullies. Some of them would go away from the bullies. They would become independently minded and stand up against the bullies. Some of them would also insert themselves as natural leaders, So you start getting the different reports from school about your child, and we'll get into that. You start getting the different reports from school. Some of them, they will send their work by and say, the feedback here is not like this. It's not like that. Again, different reasoning, different things start to happen. But that's in the context of industry. And you have to understand that where your children will develop highly positively and you will see some of the potentials. But let's move on. Let's come to inferiority. As you can see the picture, let's go back to industry first. As you can see, industry where the children are working together, they're in a safe environment with the guidance of maybe their teacher or so forth. So academic is really, 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 really at this point of their lives. Now, think about it. At every stage that we've talked about so far, there are some things that are prioritized. In this stage, academic is highly prioritized. Exploring the children's potential is highly on the menu. It's highly on the menu. So let's take, for example, if you have a third world country, if you have a country where the children might need to be developing and they need to be building their minds for the future. They need to be identifying the skills, whether they want to go, some of them want to become doctors, they want to become nurses, engineers, politicians, pastors, different things, regardless of what they want to become. We start to formulate the brain at this time in this stage. But mind you, if you have a third world country that cannot provide this opportunity for the children, they're left hanging. That means the future is even threatened. But let's talk about inferiority. Let's talk about inferiority because it's important for us to understand. Many of you have heard this word, inferiority complex. So this could be considered as some of the times of forming these things. Now, please bear in mind that inferiority in this context of children development and so forth. You see the young man over there with, I think they have backpacks. Looks more like some people say they're nerds. Some people say they're bullies or they're afraid or so forth. But in this stage, most children don't have strong sense of self-confidence. They go to school, they feel lesser than the other children there, either because of experiences from their homes, from their parents, from other people around them that have broken down their self-esteem or so forth. So when they go to school and they go to other places where they're supposed to socially insert themselves or interact, they start to have this reservation. They're not confident. They don't want to compute. Their self-esteem is low. They don't have a healthy self-development, either from home. That's why we said to you from the beginning, if you go back to the other tapes or to the other recordings, you will see that at this stage, the children are affected or impacted by some of the things that happen to them in their lives at an early stage. When you start to call them losers, when you start to say, oh, you look at apart, nothing will come from you. Oh, you like this and you like that. When you start to do that, guess what happens? These things start to happen. They start to feel inferior. The way you treat them at home, the way you've raised them, they go to school, they start to feel inferior. They think other people are better than them. So they start to look for bullies to join. They start to look for other people to join. You know, there's low self-esteem, insecurity. You know, they're not just confident in themselves. So I don't care if they were rich or they were poor or they have money or their parents have money or they came from a good home. That level of inferiority is there. They always want to be part of a clique or part of a group. You know, they want to be associated. You know, like we hear this new music around here. They want to be hanging out with the big boys. It starts from here. They're inferior because they're not independently minded. They're not developed to understand. Mommy has spoon-fed them. Daddy has spoon-fed them, spoiled them from home. Now they come to the real world where they got to face the reality. They can't. They cannot compete. They're not competent. So they compensate that by joining other bad people, by getting involved with bad things. Some of them even at this age start to being exposed to drugs and other things or other substances. They start drinking. You know, they start staying up late. Some of the females start getting involved with sexual activity at a very young age. And a lot of different things are happening. And then the big thing in here is they start to have a disconnect from their family, from their parents. They start to trust this outsider who made them to start bullying other people for them to get some kind of relevance and make them feel that by doing that, they are better people, they are industrious, or that's how they get the respect, or that's how they earn the respect. So this is how this whole board game start to roll. But it started not from today for them being inferior. It started from their childhood, how they were raised, maybe their parents' home. Some of them turn this inferiority complex into becoming very violent because they see their parents' home are very disrespectful. They're fighting. They act up in front of them, so they pick up on all these different things. Sometimes the community that they live in, the people that they hang up with. So yes, inferiority starts from here. And some of these children suffer from, we'll talk about them, depression, isolation. Some of them, even at a very young age, start to have suicidal thought. They feel left alone. They feel as though they need to do something to get attention. Let's put it that way. They start to look for attention. So they need to be either the talk of the town by acting out, by behaving a certain way, or they try to avoid their own problems or their own struggles. by projecting on other people, such as they're having a problem, they don't want to deal with the problem, so they come to school. They have a problem from home. They don't want to deal with the problem. They come from school. They see other school children. They start to bully those children. They join other children at school, and they start to act up. And maybe the school starts to write you. They're not focused on the school. They want to be out of class because they want to hang out with a certain group. They feel the need that they got to be part of a certain group, or they got to hang with certain people to get that relevance, to feel important, to feel part of something, to feel welcome. So that's how it starts. This whole issue of inferiority, that's how it starts. They feel very inferior, they feel less. Somebody's asking here, inferior would mean lower. Yes, they feel lower in rank. They feel that they're lower in status or in quality. So they feel the only way they can get relevance, they feel the only way they can feel important is when they misbehave or when they act up, whether they're in public or in private. They do something to get attention, either because they're not getting that attention from whom, they have not been getting that attention, or they're overly spoiled or so forth. And it goes back again to family, orientation, training, culture, and so forth. So yes, and these children now are stuck with this. But let's move a little further. So then the question becomes, what can parents do? What can parents do to help? So what can parents do to help? The first thing we as parents must do to help is we must get involved with our children. We must get involved with their lives. Let me say it again. You must get involved with your children's life. This is the biggest investment you can have. Get involved with your children's life, or get involved in your children's life. It's okay for you to buy them material things. It's okay for you to buy them good things if they deserve it, if you can afford it, if it's necessary. You make that call. But more importantly, it's okay for you to get involved with their life, such as go to their parent-teacher meeting. Stop making excuses. Meet the teacher. It's okay for you to meet the teacher. Get involved with whether they're helping them do the assignments, getting their help. Last week we talked about it. Get involved with your children's life. Because at this stage, parents, neighbors, and other people have a responsibility and they have a role to encourage, support, help, assist, and be there for children, for them to navigate this stage. They will depend on you. Because if you don't do that, if they should find somebody that will fill in that void, or something that will fill in that void, they will jump on it. They will take that chance. Also, in this stage, it's okay for you to have open dialogues with your children. In places like Africa and other places, there are some things that we don't want to talk about with our children. It's okay for the mothers to sit and talk about their children, about their menstrual cycles. It's okay. It's okay for you to talk to your children about some of the emotional or chemical imbalances that they will be having in the body at that stage. It's okay for you to have that conversation with them, especially the mothers. Stop telling them, oh, nobody told me about that thing, that just my friend, I heard it from there. And no, it's okay for you to teach them and talk to them about it. That yes, you are becoming a woman now, or you are a woman now. These things are natural. They will happen at this time. And this is what you should do when it happens. These are some of the things that you do. And at this stage also, you will start to notice our children, whether they are isolating themselves, they're finding themselves, they're having their quiet time or so forth. It's okay to let them have their time, especially if they're safe, but encourage open dialogues, encourage conversation, help your children. More importantly, love your children unconditionally. Even if they did not achieve certain things, support them, encourage them, help them to achieve it. Their performances in school, have a conversation with them about it. That's big. When information is sent from the school about your children, don't downplay it. Look at it. Again, don't downplay it. I will tell you as we go forward, you understand the reason why you should not downplay it. You should not overlook it, and so forth. I would expand on that reason in a little bit here as we move forward. So yes, so parents must get involved. Parents must get engaged into their children's school activity, social activity. Use some of this time. Last time I told you, maybe your children are naturally athletic. Get them involved in the sports. Get them involved in the other activities. And I will tell you why, especially for the boys. I will tell you why in a little bit, why you should get them involved in some of these activities, whether that track, whether that's soccer, whether it's basketball, whether it's is other activity that schools might offer, the community, the neighborhood, wherever you live, look into it. If you have to spend one or two cash here and there and forget about looking fly for a minute, it's okay. Nothing wrong with you forgetting about looking fly for a minute and make that investment. If you have to buy your Gucci bag, forget about the Gucci bag for that moment. Invest in your children. Maybe they want to get into some kind of sporting activities. Get them involved. Get them involved. Get them involved, and be part of their lives. Very important. So we want to move on to this important part of this conversation as to what to expect from boys' children in this stage. What to expect from them. And what are some of the things you should look forward to at this stage? So, in this stage, remember we talked about puberty. In this stage, the boys' children, testosterone, the other hormones are very high. It's an exciting time for them, for boys. They're getting to understand and know themselves. Some of your boys' children will not allow you to come in the bathroom again when they're there. That's normal. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean something's wrong with them. At this time also, it's important for you to understand that there can be unexplained mood swings for both boys and girls. The sense of low self-esteem can start to be developed. They can become aggressive. Some boys, they are very, very tough. They become very, very tough. They will wrestle you. They will tough you down. Depression could also be on there. But here is something I wanted to bring to your attention. For most of you, the parents, for most of us parents, with our children in school, here is something I thought to bring to your attention for us to look into. Apart from all of these different behaviors or these different problems are happening, some of your children in this stage will start to develop or will start to come up with disruptive moods, dysregulation disorder. Now, please don't focus on pronouncing the name or so forth. The name is not as important as what we should know that's happening to our children at that time. So this disruptive mood, dysregulation disorder happening in children. They become very irritable. They become angry. Some of them become very aggressive. Some of them become combative. They have persistent negative thought. The reason I'm trying to go slower on this part is because I want you to understand as to why when your children, especially the boys, go to school, some school psychologists, some therapists, some counselors might tell you that your children need to be on medication because of the way they're acting at that age. And you get so afraid, you don't investigate, you agree for them to put them on medication. Now, this part, again, is very interesting and it's very important for you to listen. You might not hear so many people talk about this. You might not hear too many people talk about this. But it's important for you to understand this part and other parts that we talk about. So at this stage, some of the children are very hype. They're very rough and they become disruptive in school. They begin to act up. You want to play with other people. You know, they're very rough. And these complaints start to come and they say, well, they want to go and do the evaluation and so forth. These are just moods that happen. They will happen between the ages of maybe 6 and 10 to 12 or so forth. My brothers and my sister, it's part of the natural moods of your children. Don't allow anybody to put them on medication. Some of the energy that they're having, you can transfer them to some of these sporting activities that they should be in to help them use all that energy there. You can also help them by having a conversation with them. You can. Sugar can also make them like that too, make them hype. They are not sick to be on medication. Your children are not crazy. They're not crazy. The age range for this to happen to them varies. It varies at different stages. It varies, the age range, at different stages of their lives. But it is important for you to talk to your children, for you to get a man to have a conversation with them too, to explain to them what they are doing, how is it impacting their learning. But bottom line, we need to understand that this is part of the natural reactions. A lot of things would be happening to them. Another thing that you would hear that is very, 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 very big. Most of you have heard about this. You've seen it. Some of you who work with children, you have seen this. It is the ADHD. ADHD. Some people term it as ADHD. Now, in this, your children have a very hyperactive level. They have too much energy again. Some of them can sit still. They can stand still. Sometimes they're impulsive. Again, remember now, there are a lot of changes that's happening to them. Remember this. There are a lot of changes that's happening to them. And these changes, some of them are neuro. Some of them, they happen unconsciously. And that's something that they have control over. And so forth. So they can't sit in one place. They're just hype. They're just bouncing all around the place. You can't keep up with them. It's okay for those energies to be diverted. Now, I wouldn't encourage you. I wouldn't rush to get my children on medication. I'll say it again. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD. I wouldn't rush to get my children on medication, especially the boys' children. Don't rush to get them on medication. I'll say it again to you. Don't rush. Don't be carried away to go take your children and put them on medication. Don't do that. Don't do that. Exercises, talking to them, and as time goes by, they will settle in. At that stage, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. Don't be afraid. It's part of the natural growing process for these children at that stage. Another thing that would be happening possibly to your boys' children would be the ODD, which is the oppositional defiance disorder. Most times people don't talk about this. Most times they wouldn't talk about this. Now, just by the name, the opposition, just by this, listen to what happens to your children in this mood. These children, they become hostile, they become negative, they are defiant, sometimes they're uncooperative in school, and they're very irritable. So you will hear them, they throw temper tantrums, they appear like they are mean, and sometimes they're just reacting to the environment. And people who might not understand them would want to rush to put on medication, or will try to put a stigma on them and say, oh, your child is too violent. Oh, he doesn't listen. Some of you have gotten these written complaints and so forth about your children. Yes, it happens. It would happen. It's part of their growth. Some of you can even get vexed to the point where you can say you won't carry your children, you won't send your children Africa because they give me too much hard time. And you know that, especially the boys, those of you who have boys, you know how the men can get you hard time. Can't listen. I mean, in as much that we're laughing with this, or we might be joking or smiling, these are facts. Don't rush to put your children on medication. They're not crazy. No, they're not. Again, remember that puberty, there are a lot of changes, a lot of emotional balances and so forth. With time, some of these things with time, talking, looking at the diet, getting them involved with other activities to divert some of this energy and so forth, with your support, with your love, it would make a difference. This stage is a tough stage. It is. Some of you want to send your children back home. Some of you want to do this, you want to do that. This stage is a tough stage. Let me be honest with you. Some of them will even have the audacity to stay in front of you because they got bigger body. We're saying like, bro, they got full body. They got bigger body or whatever it is. Some of them will start talking when you are talking. You know, they have that defiance. You know, they think they know it. They think they shouldn't be told what to do. You know, that ego. It's okay for you to redirect them. You know, they will develop that sense of inflicted ego. I don't want to say entitlement, but like, you can't tell me what to do. Or I understand what's going on. They want to argue. They want to justify. These are natural things. Don't allow anybody to go and put your children on medication for that. No, don't. It's a process. It requires time. It does. It does. So while we are going on with this lesson as well, some people are asking questions. When will this stage end? This stage sometimes transition all the way through maybe 18, 19, 20, 21, and so forth. It transition through maybe adulthood or maturity. It does. These stages would help at a different level. Again, what you will need as a parent, you will need support. You will need time. And listen, as a parent, this stage, this time could even increase your stress level too, because you're concerned about your children, you are worried about them, you have to take care of them, then you have work, you have other responsibilities. So yes, I can see it being very frustrating. And why other people are labeling a certain race or a certain group with these different things, their race or their group are even worse. They are doing similar thing or worse. You don't see them rushing to put on medication. But they try to put yours on medication, put you on medication. I don't want to to divert from them. But those of you who work with children and so forth. Oh, before we go forward, I'd like to recognize one of my students. I think she's currently one of my students. She is watching. Um, she's currently in one of my courses at the Grand Canyon University. I'd like to recognize her. Welcome to the show. And as time goes by, I'll be inviting some of my other students to be part of the conversation so that they can also. She was invited. I did tell her about the show. I would announce that to the class later on, but I try to do that individually. I think she's located in Minnesota. She's in Minnesota. She's one of my good students. All of my students are good. She's getting her master's in mental health through the Grand Canyon University. It's a blessing working with her. And thank you for being on here today to follow through. But let's get back. Let's get back to this conversation. So, at this stage, it's important for you to take a breather, get involved with your children's life so that you don't lose them to bullies, other people from the community, and other stuff. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are involved. You want to make sure that you're part of their lives. You want to make sure that you're playing your part. You want to go to the school when they give you that report or whatever it is. It's okay to look into other options. It's okay to tell them I don't agree with it or disagree with them. It's okay for you to don't go there and go fight. That's not what I'm saying. Make the case, have the conversation, and so forth. And yes, for some children, it could last 12 months. It could last more than 12 months. You don't need to put on medication to cut it off. No, because they will act like that. But let's move on from the boys. Let's get to the girls. So in this stage, the girls, they're also experiencing puberty. And most girls, some earlier on, but most girls, their puberty will start maybe by 11, 10, 9. For boys, it starts about 12. But again, puberty, the stage of puberty can be different for girls. Let's be clear about that. Because they're coping with so much emotional changes in their body. A lot of things is happening, to be honest. A lot of things happening in their body. Some of them, they don't understand. Some of them, they don't know what's going on. Some of them, different things are happening. And I think maybe later on we'll try to get Tel on here, maybe to help us, because I can see from the boys' side, but from the women's side, it could be a little different. It could be a little different from the women's side. It could be a little different. Let me say this. Maybe as time goes by, we get one or two people to come on here to openly give or their testimony. I think somebody wrote along, the experience, of what we are talking about. So we'll bring one or two people on here so that you can understand from this context what's going on. So in this stage, they're coping with a lot of different things, different emotions. They're having, emotional roller coaster, psychological, emotional effects, and sometimes just the sense of understanding themselves. Just the sense of understanding themselves, getting to know themselves, getting to understand one or two things. So for women in this stage, it can be a little difficult. For girls, it can be a little difficult. It can be difficult. It can be challenging for women and for girls. So some of the things that they will go through for women or for girls at this stage, they have emotional problems, serious emotional problems. And men we know, in these emotional problems, for some men we know, say it had to honest. You hear men, you hear us saying we elaborate men. You hear us saying, and that's how it starts. You hear us saying it had to deal with it. It had to deal with women. It starts this way. It starts this way. These emotional imbalances, these different things that are going on with them, it creates lots of problems, especially when they start to experience the menstrual cycles, a lot of different things going on. So emotionally, they can have problems, whether they're connecting, relating, or communicating. Sometimes they just have this huge attitude. They got a huge attitude. They don't want to deal with no one. They experience this, I don't want to say depression, but yes, it can seem like depression. You will hear some people saying, "Oh, before I experience my period, they go into that isolated mood." Some of them experience that level of anxiety, that they can't really handle. They don't really know how to communicate it. So a lot of things is going on with them as well when it comes to a psychological or mental health or an emotional standpoint. It becomes a problem for them. Some of them are not able to manage. They can socially interact. And some of them are really trying to understand themselves, especially when there is no support. Parents are not telling them what to do or what to expect, and so forth. So all of these different emotions pile up. All of these different challenges pile up. And it becomes a problem for them. And some of them might act up. Some of them also get into the peer pressure. Some of them get exposed to sex, to drugs. Some of them get raped. Some of them get molested. Some of them get violated. Some of them get abused, and so forth. So again, parents, you have a huge responsibility here. Mind you, I said parents, you have a huge responsibility here to provide support, to have a conversation with your children, and to ensure that they are doing what needs to be done. It's your responsibility. It's not anyone's responsibility. It's yours. It's your responsibility. And you will need to take on that responsibility. If you need help, you will need to get help. I told you before, especially to those of us who are Liberians, most of us who are Liberians, I told you before, don't be proud of your babysitter. Don't be making proud of the old man who can take care of your children. You will need them. You will need them. You will need those people. You will need all those people. You will need your support system. Don't insult your parents. Don't fight with your parents, because they will help you care for your children. You will need all that support. That being said, unless you have a question, I'm going to put out the numbers for you to call if you have a question or concern or feedback or whatever. Now we have the next 10 to 15 minutes and we'll be calling it a day. If you have my direct number, you can feel free to call me as well. For any input, you will have a minute or two to do so, and we'll call it a day. Let me put the number really quick. That is the number to call. If you call, you would be able to participate. You are more than welcome to call and to participate into today's conversation. The numbers are up. Feel free to call to participate. Exercise, getting your children into a routine, getting your children involved is a big plus in this stage. Paying keen attention to them, whether through sports, whether they like sports or not, you know, definitely, definitely, it's okay. So I am so sorry, Musu. You say I should clarify. Yes, you probably came a little later, but we did talk about both of them, the difference. We provided clarity and context as to what industry is and versus inferiority, what it really means, and how both of them work. So maybe if you have the time, you can hold on one second. We're getting a call here. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from, please?
Hey, this is Ben calling from Minnesota. How are you?
Hey Ben, what's up?
Good. Well, thanks for the show and the brilliant explanation. But here's where I lack a little bit of the problem. Probably you can expand on that more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are some issues with these boys. Just how you explain, how the neurons are firing and they're young and all of these things happening.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to be a bit definite. I don't know if that was deliberate or when you said do not allow your kids to get on meds. Yeah, myself will not want my kids to get on medications unless I do all of the due diligence, to find out. But medications are not also bad because there are places where medications really help. And but there are places where when parents will try everything that they have in their toolbox, and if nothing is working, then you have to go to the next option, which is having these medications being deployed. But now, here is where it becomes tricky for African parents. So let's say the typical Liberian family is about a family of four. All right, mom has to work, dad has to work, children have to be in school, and every now mom comes home, it's a complaint about Jimbo. Jimbo is just he's hitting people, he's fighting. Every now and then, the teachers, and I would say without even fear, the teachers in this country most often are so afraid of litigation, they're afraid of parents taking them to court. So people don't want to discipline children any harder that they will get in problems. So more like it is a head up. So the first thing they teach us is that they write you letters and letters and letters and letters. And mom comes home every day. She has to go to Jumbo school meeting. And all these things become so frustrating that most of our African parents will have no option and will put these kids on meds. Whether it is the right decisions that they are making or not, but more like because they have not had a lot of the education, just like what we're providing, where to seek help and where not to get help from. That is some of the reason why you find parents putting their kids on meds. I know a lot of university students. American kids. I will tell you, Steve, a lot of the kids are coming out that I teach in college. Error. which is that mess that they gave for food, have been idiot. And it is so bad that now the kids are only using it now because they can't concentrate. So everybody takes it, and so that you can sell it. So if you have an African parent, what would you advise them to do with their personal life and what is going on with their kids? What would you advise?
Thank you for your question. The first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to be clear on something, that I'm not in opposition to medication. There are some cases and some situations where people would have to get on medication. But once it reaches that point, then some of them might not even have to be in a regular school. Because it has to be at a very severe or serious case to really maintain them. I want to clear that out. So I'm speaking in the context of some people are racist. Some people, like you said, because of the litigation, they don't want to have to deal with that student that's acting out, that's having that emotional problem, or some of the teachers, they're not trained to understand that part. So they refer them to the counselor to make all these different complaints as to get rid of them because they think that child is a distraction or that child is taking away from the learning time or so forth.
Yep.
And so when they refer them with all these different complaints or whatever, some of these counselors who are not even trained to do these psychological evaluations or whatever it is, write these recommendations. And most of them would be females. And I'm not trying to play any kind of feminist card here or go against female, whatever it is. I'm just saying the context in which these things are done. So you don't want to set yourself up for that. You don't want to rush. So we got to recommend medication. Oh, yeah, just put him on it so he can start giving you a hard time, let him go to school. I'll say to African parents, get involved with your children's life. Get involved. Get involved. Seek help. Go to other places. Go for more than one evaluation. If somebody said they evaluated a child, let's take for example, my daughter was evaluated. They had some kind of, I don't know what kind of testing they had for honors or whatever. And I read a report. I called them back. I said, no, this is crazy. First of all, the report don't add up. The data don't add up. Before they wrote me back and said, oh, it was just a test and we're just sampling. But you gave me an official letter saying she couldn't be admitted into that program though. So you see how they can be dismissive when you don't pay attention. You see how they can try to get rid of you and try to, push you on the side because they don't want to have to deal with that. And some of them are aware that at this stage, children will act this way. But guess what they try to do? They try to substitute dealing with this when they're being paid by state money and they're being paid to do their job. They try to substitute it. And I'm not saying some of these students are not problematic. I'm not saying they can be distracting. They can be defiant. I'm not saying that we read about it here and we'll talk about it. But it is your responsibility to also create avenue to accommodate these students at that time in the stage of their lives. You can't just dismiss them and say, let's put them on medication. That is not right. Because these medications too, they have side effect and they have long-lasting effect on these children. When you start to put them on medication, get ready, you open up Pandora box because you have to maintain it. The body become addicted to that medication to the point that when they don't have it, then they act up more than what they were acting up on. Do you want to have a child with you that you have to be going back and forth with medication? What sense does that make? Sometimes it even interfere with their cognition. That's why I'm encouraging parents not to rush to the medication. Somebody gives you anything about your child at school, whatever it is, go through it. You don't understand it, call someone else to read it, to interpret it, look into other options. Make sure you do your due diligence as a parent. Don't just fall for anything. Don't just rush because you're afraid that the way people say, that the way men say, listen, screw that. Get serious. Mommy, I got to take another call here, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. I hope it helps answer your question.
Say that.
Thank you, sir. Let me get another caller here. Somebody else was calling. I'm so sorry. Somebody called me from. Let me get you here. Where's this? Uh, you caught in, you going again? Yes, Marty Kate, I agree with you. That is neglect in itself. That is say people can say whatever they want. That is neglect in itself. That is neglect. And that's exactly what happens in most of the cases. And then now you start to have your child or your children on medication for the rest of their lives. They got to be dependent on these drugs, and you have no clue. Yes, were you calling to make a point? Okay, hold on one second. Hold on, let me put you on. Hold on, let me put you on. Hold on. Yes, call.
I don't remember my points, so don't put me.
I already put you on, so you're on. You're on. Everybody listen to you. You don't do what? What's your name? Where you calling from, please?
Support your boys. They will be oppositional. They will be defiant. They like snacks, I guess. So how to be a good mom would be provide them with a lot of snacks. They eat a lot of food. As their growing stage, you know. What else can I say?
But what's your name? You haven't even identified. We don't know who you are, though.
Oh, I'm Seattle Townsend from H-Town.
Okay. What is H-Town?
Houston.
Okay.
You ain't know Houston?
I know Houston, but I don't know H-Town. Sarah, I'm just pulling your legs. I'm just messing with you. But yes, you were saying earlier on that providing snacks as a parent. So Sarah, can I ask you a question, especially with teenagers or teen childhood, or whatever it is? What really happens with the girls? What would you say when it comes to what are emotional imbalances or so forth?
So I can't answer that question, but I would assume that what happens with them is what happened with me, which was I started hemorrhaging when I was 11, and it happens every month. And the worst part is it only stopped when a human being came out of my body. And since then, I've been mostly fine, but yeah, that's what happens with the girls.
Does it have any effect on in terms of the emotional state, your moods, and how you relate to other people, absolutely. How you interact? What would you say?
A complete imbalance. Yes. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. Yes, but I've recovered since then, and now I'm healthy, and
all right. Is there anything else you would like to add before we let go of you?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate your contribution. All right. Well, I'm glad. I don't know. I can get Telvi on here. I was trying to get her on here, but let me see. One more second. Let me see if I can get Telvi. If I cannot get her, then I think we'll call it a day. I want to hear from Telvi as well. This is an interesting conversation. Having a female's perspective, it's critically vital. Okay, unfortunately, we cannot get hold of Tel. Uh, uh, so we'll keep it here as that. We'll give it the last. We got 5 more minutes to be done. So let's do 5 more minutes. If you have any input, feel free to call us and we'll go from there. I think someone made a very good point. Mohamed Keita made a good point here. He states, quote, I watch a lot of Liberians kids get put through this process for equities as a means of funding sources opportunity cost. Maybe that child is being bullied, family problem, trauma, and other reasons that requires non-medication intervention. I agree with you. I agree with you. We cannot just resort into medication. I agree with you 100%. And some of these things need to be talked about as we're talking about them today. They need to be talked about. We need to have some of these serious-minded conversation. You know, we need to definitely talk about some of these things. It's critically important. And I want to say this to you though. I'm not saying that some people might not get on medication, but I'm saying to you, I'm encouraging you. If this would be the case, then it cannot just be based on one report, one or two incidences, or so forth, to get your child or your children on medication for the rest of their lives. I can tell you this today. You do not want to go that route because more likely so there is no coming back. That's not something that you can change. That's not something that you can fix. Let me put it in a Liberian context. Once that child gets on medication or that grown-up get on medication, forget it. Just forget it. Let's move to the next thing. Let's discuss the next thing. That's it. That is it. It's a different ball game that you don't want to go into. It's a different place that you don't want to go. It is a different place that you don't want to go. You do not want to go there because some of those behavior will be enhanced. They will be exacerbated. And if your child's supposed to get out of that mood swings or roller coaster for 1 year or whatever it is, kiss it goodbye. Kiss it goodbye. So, I mean, we'll stop here for today. Let's give you the announcements for tomorrow. We want to say thanks to all of you, our viewers and our listeners. Let's give you the announcements for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be on here at 11 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We would be here. To have political conversations. We'll talk about a lot of things tomorrow. A lot is unfolding in the country. There's been a lot going on. So we definitely need to talk about some of them. So tomorrow we'll be here. Tomorrow we'll be here. Please invite someone. I want to thank all of you. Thank you for your comments, your questions, your concerns, those who called. Thank you. And we'll be here next Friday as well. But tomorrow we are on to discuss the issues. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. Let's have a very, very good weekend. Stay out of trouble. Take care of your children. Take care of yourselves. And be blessed.